There's a couple of distinctions when it comes down to interrogation. Interrogation happens often in closed countries. It's a common way for the countries to get to know who you are. And there's several levels of it. So I'm going to kind of add some distinctives to that. One of those is soft interrogation. A soft interrogation is somebody who just comes alongside of you and begins talking to you, and you actually think they're trying to engage you in a conversation, but in reality, they're probably working for a government trying to get information from you. It's actually one of the most effective ways of interrogation because people are far more freely and just a casual conversation disclose far more information than they have than in a hard interrogation or a more aggressive interrogation. The soft or passive interrogation that takes place, oftentimes what that takes place is, we always say it happens at a coffee shop where you're meeting a friend and you're just casually sitting down and they're asking you about your family, about your life, about things in your life and where what brought you here. Those are far more situations where you think you're talking to a friend, and in reality you're actually talking to a microphone in some ways, where they're just listening to your conversation, they're relaying back things that they're hearing, and they're starting to piece together a story about why you're in the country. It's not strange for a foreigner to be overseas, even in a closed country. It's not strange for them to find you there. It is something though that makes them curious as to why you would be there. Generally speaking, also in most interrogations, in most situations, most countries are not thinking that you're, it's not about being a missionary, it's about other means and other reasons why you're there. But sometimes being a missionary is one of the high points of that government sphere, and that's not based on the way you might think of what a missionary is, but it's based on how they perceive missionaries from their worldview and their perspective, which makes it challenging to understand. So I would actually just say that when you're in a conversation with people, like for example in a coffee shop or with a friend or at someone's house, or they're at your house and they're asking you questions, we always say and remain in your box, remain with simple, truthful statement about your life and who you are, understanding that all of that is true. But being careful not to go farther down a road if someone's walking you down that road. And that does happen oftentimes in soft interrogations. Hard interrogations or aggressive interrogations are interrogations that take place where the government is basically identified that you are someone that they're after or they want to determine to talk to. So what they'll do generally is they'll take you into a room or take you from your house into an office place. They'll usually bring cameras into that situation where they'll point cameras at you, they'll begin filming you during that time. It's a very, very challenging time to walk through where there's a lot of pressure. The things that they're looking for is looking for facial changes, like watching you as you're thinking things through. They're watching to make sure that what you're saying is truthful. There are people on the other side of those cameras that are watching your gestures, your movements, activities that you're doing, trying to find out if you're lying in any of the questions. It's usually repeated questions over and over again, where they're asking you questions, repeating the questions back, asking you why you're lying to them. They'll oftentimes make you sign documents admitting that or asking you to admit that you've broken the law, and signing those documents. A couple of things I would recommend that people always think about doing whenever you're in those situations is, if you're ever in that situation, is ask, even though you speak the language maybe fluently or to a high level, is still ask them to translate it into your own personal language. Ask for that time. In any time of hard interrogation, ask for a translator, so that they're being forced now to walk back with you through the things where you can make sure that the questions that are being asked are clearly being stated. It can be a time where, even though you do all of those things, that they may again ask you to sign documents. It's helpful to think through that very carefully. We've talked about that the Lord will give you the words in those types of situations. So just trust on Him during those times. But also remember that an option can be to ask for your embassy to be notified that this is taking place. And in those times too, when you eventually feel the pressure to finally sign a document, recognize that it's all in the Lord's hand anyways, it's totally out of your control. But the threats will be pretty significant at times. It could be for your family, for your freedom, and for the ability, or just even the ability to stay in the country. Oftentimes people are asked to sign a document to stay, which actually will cause them to be exited out of the country. So hard interrogations take place usually within, we usually consider a hard interrogation. Interrogations are lasting between 3 to 12 to 48 hours of interrogation, and they're pretty challenging to sit through. But just remember to, again, stay in your box. Try as much as you can to stay in your box, that there's not a better answer than the truthful answer. And always be truthful, always be clear, and always be considerate of the fact that God is in control of all these things.